My dad used to always say to me, son, you want to know who your friends are? Wait till one day you're in the hospital, one day you're in prison, or one day you're rich and then all of a sudden you're poor. You'll know who your true friends are. I guess he really knew. I didn't understand that for a long time, but I guess he really knew because my dad went from being very wealthy to come to the United States to clean toilets. I ended up learning the lesson that he taught me when I was in prison. I never forget that first Christmas that I was in prison. I went to prison. I was young, I was 23 years old. I had a ton of money. My parents would lack for nothing. And I called home that day. And when I asked my brother, JC, my brother, you talk about an idol? Besides God, that is my brother to me. And you know why? Because my brother sacrificed 10 years of his life to make sure that my parents came to see me every visit that they could. So when I called him that day and I asked him, Christmas Day, I never forget, or New Year's Day, hey JC, how's everything going? How many people are there? I was expecting so many people to come by, as they did forever and ever, while I was outside and while I was doing so much for them. And he says to me, George, just mom, dad, and me. I went back to my bunk and I cried. And I cried because I realized what my father had said. You want to know who your true friends are? Wait till you're in prison. Well, recently I went through a horrible experience. I had a friend that I really loved. We had spent a lot of time together. Went to Angola with me for a long time. But we have very different views about Trump. And at the end of the day, sometimes I kid about it. Because at the end of the day, Trump is not going to do nothing, was never going to do anything for me. And Biden is not going to do anything for me. So I really don't care or to defend or to spend my energy or to fight with a friend. My best friend Lyle, he and I have complete opposite views about the president or the ex-president and now President Biden. But we don't allow that ever to divide our friendship. But this friend called me up, sent me an email, and about these crazy conspiracy theories, but also about the fact that how do you feel about all this communist ideas and all this socialism? I answered back by saying, how do I feel? Because a man who works 40 hours should not live in poverty, should not only make $15, but $20 an hour. And I don't give a damn if we have to pay more for an apple, for a banana, for whatever. The truth of the matter is, if we pay more, he could also buy it. But unfortunately today, who can live on $7 an hour? Who can live on $15 an hour? So therefore, am I a communist or socialist because I want a human being that works 40 hours a day to support their family, has no education, but has worked all their lives to be able to bring home a dignified wage? Yeah, then damn it, I'm a socialist. Because I believe that people should not die as they are dying all over the United States rationing insulin because they cannot afford to buy insulin. In a country as rich as ours, people cannot afford to get sick. Do I believe that every human being in America should have health care as a right, not a privilege? Hell yeah, I do. And see, none of these things affect me because I make a lot more than $15 an hour. I did. And at the same time, I have health care. But it affects me when others less than me cannot afford that. So if that makes me a communist, yeah, so be it. But I never did any of my friends say, hey, how's it feel now that you got that big tax break that I benefited from? Because the stock market went up, stocks that I have, those companies bought the stock back, so my stocks went up. Yeah, I made a lot of money. But do you know what? It still didn't take away that pain and that hurt that I have over so many that have nothing, because I saw my father and mother have nothing. I saw them work for minimum wage. But a minimum wage in 1966 was much more than $7 an hour today. And they were able to save and buy a little house years after through their sacrifice. I saw them because they came to America and suddenly their education meant nothing here. So yeah, I know what it is. And I know what it is to see so many hurting, so many single moms, which to me are my heroes, knowing that, hey, how do I feed my child? How do I go on and educate and find a job while at the same time my child has to stay home and go to school? I heard from them. How about in a city where I live, that if you don't earn a minimum of over $10 an hour, you cannot rent a house. So therefore, there's these people working at McDonald's for $7 an hour, honest, working every day, 2 shifts. But you know what? That 2 shifts that equals $15, they don't count it as that because they only count 1 shift. And then you know what happens? They cannot rent a house. So you know where they're living? In these roach motels where in a regular 1-room motel, you have a whole family cooking, living, sleeping. Garbage in the dumpster sky high. Yeah, I heard about that. So you know why socialism would come to America? In reality, we don't have socialism. What people are trying to say, because we're living in a country that politicians are nothing but about scaring you. They want to scare you to death. They want you to be so fearful of the boogeyman. And there's your savior. None of them ever going to do nothing for you. Whatever you're going to do for yourself, you're going to do it for yourself through your hard work, sacrifice, and persistence. But they'll tell you, oh, all this stuff is going to happen. No, there's no communism. Socialism? Neither. Just people wanting to have a dignified life. In a country where the stock market goes through the roof and unemployment also through the roof, something disconnects. I used to tell my father, you know why communism came to Cuba? Very simple. When you have a country where 95% of the wealth is owned by 5% of the people, all you need is a charismatic person to come and say, hey, what have you got to lose? But no one's done nothing for them. So you know what? Somebody new came along. Hey, we'll go with them. So we have a tremendous disparity. Our middle class has disappeared in America. And sure enough, get someone charismatic to come in there. You think people give a damn? You have someone come in there and says, I'm going to erase your student loans, which is a mafia, which is the most horrific crime the U.S. government does. You can buy a house at 2% mortgage, but yet your interest for student loans is 6-7%. And universities charge more and more and more tuition. Why? Because you can borrow it. They don't give a shit that one day you're not going to be able to buy a house, that you're going to be indebted for the rest of your life with a stupid mortgage without a home called a student loan. So when someone comes in there and says, I'm going to wipe out your student loan, then right, 90% of people that have student loan will vote for that person. See? And that's what's really, really critical. That's what's going on in America today. Call it communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it. No, it's not. It's disparity of classes, disparity of income. It is the disappearance of the middle class. Talk about what's the ailment of America. Talk about why we're not talking about mental health and all the people struggling with mental health. Why are we not? So, going back to the topic with my friend, all of a sudden he called me a horse's ass and insulted the hell out of me. And I love that man. But then I realized one thing. Think carefully about this. Friends never leave. They stay no matter what. Friend loves you for your faults, not your virtues. Because, like I tell people, Trump did not make divisions in family. Did not break family, did not break friendships. No, those were not real friendships. Because no one can break up a friendship. Even if you want to idolize somebody and your brother, there's nothing my brother can say or do that's going to make me not love him. He's my brother. And the same I feel about those that are my close friends. But as the older you get, the more you realize how little friends you really have. That's why, I hardly talk to anyone on the phone anymore. I don't watch social media. My wife monitors all my social media, and she does it just to get out our message, but don't go to Facebook or any of that. Why? Because I realized that I was falling into the same trap. I was beginning to feel hate, and I was beginning to feel anger. Why? How can I give that much power to anybody? Because at the end of the day, no one has power over us that we don't give to them. And why don't I think about the good in that person versus the stupidity that he or she might be posting? We really need to think about that. We need to think about what really is important in our lives. I say that social media brought faraway friends closer, but it has taken those close friends of ours far away from us. It has destroyed society. And it will. A tool that was meant for good has really become something very, very evil. So you just can't separate politics today from social media. is not news. It's about controlling people's mind. And it's about making people believe a false narrative on both sides. And it's very, very sad because you only believe what you want to believe. And you only believe what you allowed others to tell you to believe. But I thank God that every day I ask God, I ask Him every day, please give me a heart for those that are hurting. Let tears come out of my eyes, because if you hear some of those stories, like I saw in American Idol, of a young man, 13 of them, living in a 2-bedroom, broken down trailer. Thank God that a fireman told him he could be a fireman too. And that department has embraced this African American. He's the only African American in an all-white fire department. But you see the joy in that young man because he knew he could be better, and he is better. But if you see those stories and you don't have tears come out of your heart, you know why? Because your heart is very hard. You know why I know that? Because there was a time in my life that I could see someone die and say, I don't give a shit. If you're dead, it's because you should not be breathing our good air. But today, when I think about those immigrants crossing those borders trying to feed their family, I think about my mom and dad leaving everything behind so they could feed our family. When I see those single moms struggling to try to raise their child in a society that over 55% of all children are raised by a single mom, my heart weeps. When I see those people that have no education, because sometimes many of them had to work since an early age, could not afford to go to school, and at the same time help feed their family, my heart weeps. When I see all those good people addicted to drugs, my heart weeps. Mental illness. A mom needing an abortion because she just doesn't know how to make it anymore. My heart weeps. We were all created perfect in the image of God. We've allowed sin to make us ugly. But we can stop. And somehow, it is my prayer that God does something so unbelievable to change our society that has become so freaking ugly. But I care about my grandchildren that I adore and my children that I adore. I care about the world that they're going to grow up in. Very different than my world. I grew up in the world surrounded by the greatest generation. Men and women who felt that they had problems in their marriage, but divorce was not an option. Men and women who'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. Men who went to serve a war that they didn't agree with, but to serve was an honor and a duty. Men who created the greatest country on earth. That's all disappear. Think about it. That was the true American dream. They work hard, they sacrifice. They save money, put their kids through school, eventually retire. And with the sale of their home or their retirement and their Social Security, they lived a decent life. But today, because we're so consumed with buying, consumerism, and having things, all the things that we think are going to make us happy that will never make you happy, then therefore we've abandoned everything that's important to us. And years come and years go. And then we get to a point where we're old. Our children don't care about us. You know why? Because we didn't care about them. Very, very sad. And we find ourselves lonely and alone because we're reaping what we sowed. But God will intervene and something will happen. And like every empire, this one too shall fall. So think about where you're putting your faith and your hope on. Are you putting it on the one that never changes, the one that's never lied to you, the one that created you, and the one that did the ultimate sacrifice one day and died for you? Think about that. If you do, I promise you, you'll be a lot more happy. And at the same time, as you look at so many of those you call your friends, trust me, if you have 3 friends, you got too many. But the greatest friends you always have is your mom, your dad, and some of your siblings. So today, appreciate your friends, appreciate your children, your family, your mom, your dad. Don't let any political figure separate you from the love you've had for so many. So align your priorities. And remember, your walk may make the difference between someone spending eternity in heaven or hell. I think so. If I'm wrong, I didn't lose a damn thing. But if I'm right, there's just a lot to be lost. God bless you. Love you. And be blessed.